Okay, this is the last part 4 of section 3.12, and this will cover questions 6 and 10. So question 6, we have this problem here, w squared minus 49, and they ask us to factor this. And this is a little different than what we've been doing because it's a binomial, because it has two terms instead of a trinomial. But when we have a binomial, one of the things we want to check for is if it's a difference, which it is because there's a minus sign, of squares, which it is because this is a perfect square, and 49 is a perfect square because 7 times 7 equals 49. So if they're both perfect squares and it's a difference, we call this a difference of squares. And I would encourage you to memorize how to factor it. So if I have a perfect square with a difference and another perfect square, they would factor as two binomials, a and b, one's a plus, one's a minus. So it's really not very hard. Probably the hardest part, if you don't recognize the 49, is figuring out what its square root is. But you can always do square root of 49 on your calculator. In this case, it's 7. So I would write my 2 parentheses, put my w in the first entry, my 7's in the second, and one's a plus, one's a minus, and that's my answer. That's called a difference of squares. So let's move to question 10, where they have another difference of squares, but what you'll notice is that instead of a statement, let's see, I have b squared minus 25 equals 0. So instead of a statement, which it would be if there were not the equal sign, it's an equation because it's equal 0. So I look at this, and I notice I have two terms. It's a difference of squares. The square root of 25 is 5. So I'm going to write my 2 empty parentheses equals 0. Put my b's in the front, my 5's in the rear. One's a plus, one's a minus. So I've now factored that, but I need to go one step further because it's an equation. So either this was 0 or this was 0 or both in order for their product to be 0. So I will write two separate equations, b plus 5 equals 0, b minus 5 equals 0. Solve them. So I get b equals negative 5 or b equals positive 5. So my two answers are negative 5, positive 5. You either need to write them in with a comma in between, or there is a plus or minus on the little menu on my math lab. You could write plus or minus 5, which implies a positive 5 or a negative 5 for this answer. And that's it. I'll talk to you later.